There comes a moment in every person's life when things do not go according to plan, when doors do not open as expected, when prayers feel unanswered, and when the heart quietly begins to wonder why the timing of life does not match personal desires. In those moments, frustration slowly builds, not always loudly, but in a quiet heaviness that sits in the chest. And yet, what many do not realize is that the very moment you feel things are delayed or uncertain is often the moment where something far greater is being prepared for you, beyond what you can see or understand. There are moments in life when a person begins to feel that things are not happening the way they expected. Plans are made with hope, effort is put in with sincerity, and prayers are made with longing. Yet the results do not appear on the timeline the heart had imagined. In those moments, a quiet discomfort begins to settle inside. The mind starts asking questions, the heart starts feeling impatient, and a person begins to wonder why things are delayed, why answers are not coming, and why life feels like it is moving differently than their expectations. This is where the struggle with timing begins. Human beings naturally want clarity, control, and predictability. It is part of their nature to feel more comfortable when they can see the next step clearly. But life does not always operate in a way that allows full visibility. Many things are unfolding at the same time. Many paths are being arranged beyond what a person can immediately see, and many outcomes are being shaped in ways that are not yet revealed. But because the human perspective is limited to the present moment, it often feels like nothing is happening, when in reality, something is already in motion. The problem is not that life is delayed. The problem is that the mind becomes attached to its own timing. A person creates an expectation in their heart, a schedule in their mind, and a desire for how and when things should happen. And when reality does not match that internal schedule, frustration begins to grow. The heart starts to feel restless, not because nothing is happening, but because it is not happening in the way or at the speed that was expected. Over time, this restlessness turns into pressure. A person begins to mentally carry the weight of outcomes they cannot control. They replay situations in their mind, trying to understand what went wrong or what is missing. They analyze every detail, every decision, every possible reason for delay. But instead of finding peace, they often find more confusion. Because the more the mind tries to control what is beyond its reach, the heavier the internal experience becomes. What is often forgotten in these moments is that human understanding of time is very limited. A person sees only what is in front of them. They see the current situation, the current delay, the current silence, and they assume that this moment defines the entire outcome. But life is not one moment. It is a sequence of moments, many of which are not visible yet. And just because something is not visible does not mean it is not being arranged. There are situations in life where what appears to be a delay is actually a form of protection. At the time, a person may not recognize it. They may feel frustrated, disappointed, or even confused. But later, when time passes and understanding deepens, they may realize that what they were waiting for would not have been suitable at that stage of their life. Sometimes what is delayed is not delayed randomly. It is delayed because something within the person or around the situation is still being prepared. There are also times when what feels like a closed door is not truly a rejection, but a redirection. The human mind tends to focus strongly on one outcome, one path, or one expectation. So when that specific path does not open, it feels like loss. But what is not immediately visible is that life often redirects a person towards something different, something that may not have been considered initially, but is more aligned with their overall journey. The difficulty arises because the heart becomes emotionally attached to a specific timing. A person begins to believe that if something does not happen now, it is not meant to happen at all. But this belief is shaped by impatience, not by reality. Because many things in life only become meaningful when they arrive at the right time, not just any time. Timing is not a small detail in life. It often determines the outcome itself. When a person starts to understand this, even slightly, their relationship with waiting begins to change. Instead of seeing waiting as emptiness, they begin to see it as a space where something is being prepared. Instead of seeing silence as absence, they begin to see it as a process that is not yet visible. And instead of seeing delay as failure, they begin to see it as part of a larger plan that is unfolding beyond their immediate awareness. This shift does not happen instantly. It develops slowly, often through repeated experiences of waiting and reflecting. A person may go through multiple situations where things did not happen when expected, but later turned out differently than imagined. And over time, these experiences begin to build a quiet understanding within them that timing is not something they fully control or fully understand. As this understanding grows, something very important begins to change inside the heart. The constant pressure to force outcomes starts to reduce. The need to mentally control every detail begins to weaken. The urgency that once dominated thought slowly starts to soften. And in its place, a more patient and steady form of trust begins to develop. This trust does not remove effort. A person still works, still plans, still moves forward, but they are no longer emotionally trapped in the idea that everything must happen according to their immediate expectation. There is a sense of acceptance that what is meant to happen will happen in its own time, and what is not happening yet may still be in preparation. And when a person reaches this state of understanding, their inner experience of life changes significantly. The same situations may still exist, the same uncertainties may still be present, but the emotional burden attached to them becomes lighter. The mind becomes less reactive. The heart becomes less anxious. And even in moments of delay, there is a quiet sense of stability forming inside. Because true peace does not always come from everything happening on time. It comes from learning to trust that even the timing itself carries wisdom that may not be immediately visible. There are moments in life when a person reaches a point where they feel like they have done everything they possibly can, yet things are still not unfolding the way they expected. Plans are in place, effort has been made, prayers have been raised, and hope is still there. But the outcome remains delayed or unclear. In that space, the heart begins to feel restless. The mind starts searching for answers, trying to understand why things are not happening on time, why doors are not opening, and why life seems to be moving in a direction that does not match personal expectations. This is where the struggle with control quietly begins. Human beings naturally want to understand timing. They want clarity about when things will happen, how they will happen, and what the outcome will be. It is part of human nature to feel more comfortable when life feels predictable. But the reality is that life is not fully visible to the human mind. A person only sees a small part of their journey, the present moment, while the larger picture is unfolding in ways they cannot immediately perceive. When something does not happen on time according to expectation, the mind often interprets it as a problem. It starts to assume that delay means something is wrong, or that silence means nothing is happening. But this interpretation is shaped by limited perception. Because what is not seen is not necessarily absent, and what is not happening yet is not necessarily denied. There is a difference between human timing and real timing, and most of the emotional struggle comes from trying to force life into a schedule that is not fully understood. The heart becomes uneasy when it tries to carry control over outcomes that are not fully in its hands. A person begins to mentally carry future possibilities, trying to predict every direction life might take. They replay scenarios, imagine outcomes, and try to prepare for every possibility. But instead of finding peace, this constant mental activity often creates more confusion. Because the more the mind tries to control what is uncertain, the heavier the emotional load becomes. What is often not realized in these moments is that trust is not the absence of effort, but the release of unnecessary mental burden. A person can still work, still plan, still take steps forward, but without carrying the constant pressure of needing to control everything mentally. Trust is the quiet understanding that not everything is meant to be figured out immediately, and not everything requires constant emotional struggle in order to move forward. There is a deeper wisdom in the idea that timing is not random. Many things in life are shaped by conditions that are not immediately visible. Sometimes a person is not yet ready for what they are asking for, even if they feel ready emotionally. Readiness is not only about desire, it is also about preparation, growth, alignment, and circumstances coming together in the right way. And when something is delayed, it does not always mean it is being denied. It may simply mean it is being prepared. In the moment of waiting, however, the mind struggles to accept this. It wants answers now. It wants clarity now. It wants certainty now. But life does not always respond in that way. Instead, it often unfolds gradually, revealing only what is necessary at the right time. And because of this gradual unfolding, a person is often placed in a state of uncertainty, where they must continue without full understanding. This state of uncertainty is where trust becomes important. Trust is not built when everything is clear. Trust is built when things are unclear. And yet, a person continues to believe that there is wisdom behind what is happening. It is easy to feel confident when outcomes are visible, but it is much more meaningful when a person maintains steadiness, even when outcomes are hidden. During this process, the heart begins to go through subtle changes. At first, there may be resistance. A person may feel frustration, impatience, or even disappointment. They may question why things are not happening the way they want. But over time, if they continue moving forward, something starts to shift. The intensity of emotional reaction begins to reduce. The constant need for answers begins to soften, and slowly a different kind of awareness begins to form. This awareness is not about having all the answers. It is about accepting that not all answers are needed immediately. It is about understanding that life does not reveal everything at once. And it is about recognizing that sometimes the process of waiting is not empty, but filled with unseen preparation. As this awareness grows, the mind begins to relax slightly. It no longer feels the same pressure to constantly analyze every delay. It no longer feels the same urgency to interpret every silence. Instead, there is a gradual shift from over-control to acceptance. And this acceptance does not mean giving up effort. It means releasing emotional tension that was previously attached to outcomes. There is also a transformation that happens in how a person experiences time. When someone is deeply anxious, time feels slow, heavy, and frustrating. Every delay feels longer than it actually is. But when a person begins to trust more, time feels different. The same waiting period feels lighter, because it is no longer filled with constant internal struggle. The external situation may not change, but the internal experience of it changes significantly. This is one of the quiet effects of trust. It does not always change what is happening outside, but it changes how a person carries what is happening inside. And that internal shift is often more powerful than external change, because it determines how a person experiences every situation in their life. Over time, a person begins to notice something very important. Situations they once thought were delays may later reveal meaning. Outcomes they once feared may later show hidden wisdom. And paths they once questioned may later prove to be necessary redirections. This does not always become clear immediately, but reflection over time often brings understanding that was not visible in the moment. And through all of this, trust slowly becomes a stable part of the heart. Not because everything is always clear, but because the heart learns that clarity is not always required for peace. A person begins to realize that they can continue living, continue trying, and continue hoping without needing to mentally control every detail of the future. In that realization, something very deep begins to settle within the heart. The urgency to force life into immediate understanding starts to fade. The emotional weight of uncertainty begins to reduce. And in its place, a quieter form of strength develops, one that allows a person to move forward, even when they do not see the full path ahead. And that is where a different kind of peace begins to form, not from control, but from trust that what is meant to happen will happen at the right time, in the right way, even if it is not yet visible.